So when we see people on a daily basis, we usually say, how are you doing? And I would say the most common answer that you'll get, at least in DC, I don't know if it's true where you live, but in DC you'll get this answer: I'm busy. Everyone is overwhelmed. Everyone is busy. It's almost a signal of the success of your life, really, to say, I'm just really busy. You must be doing something good if you're that busy. And so it raises a question. How much of our lives do we just spend and we feel like we're just pushing and pushing and pushing to get things done? Checking off our to-do list is what I'm always working on. Pushing to make the world behave in the way that we want it. We're always twisting and turning. And how often do we feel that in that pushing and moving and grinding that we feel like we are running out of energy? So today I want to explore ways that we can look at those moments that so many of us have and see what it is signaling to us in our spiritual life and what we can do about it. A few weeks ago, Dr. Jim Robinson preached a message for us. And if you were here, he described 4 levels of consciousness. And they're worth reviewing. You can live in a way where life happens to you. That's the first level. You can live in a way that life happens by you. You make things happen. Or you can live in a way where life happens through you. And then the final one is you can live in a way where life happens as you. And he mentioned them pretty quickly, and they're pretty profound. The framework for that way of thinking, those 4 levels of consciousness, has become popularized by Michael Beckwith's Agape Church. If you're familiar with the book The Secret, they're connected to that. And it's in the book The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, which a couple of years ago I did a whole sermon series on all 15. Now what's interesting for us as a Swedenborgian congregation is that Beckwith built his ideas on the teachings of a teacher of the 20th century teacher named Ernest Holmes, who founded something called a religious science. But Beckwith and Holmes both credit their original understanding for these levels and how it works to Swedenborg. They consider him the grandfather of thinking. So you'll see it's a little different, but it's interesting that they have that ancestry they share. And I think these levels are really valuable for us in our own self-awareness and in our own spiritual development. And they get to the goal here. If the gospel message today was let your light shine, how do we do that? Like, how do we move to different levels of letting it shine? Or do we, keep it under a bushel? So let's go through the 4 and talk about how we move up and then how and why we often get stuck. Okay? So the first way is that life happens to you. And this is the victim stage. And it's where most of humanity lives. In this stage, the world acts on you, and all you can do is react to it. So your mood that you have, it's just based on your circumstances. Your sense of yourself, it rises and falls daily, depending on what people say about you. Your energy is used toward managing things that come at you. You're just reacting. I'm going to react to everything. And we can really spend a lot of time. So if you just listen to your own words, whenever you're saying it was the traffic, it was the politics, it's the weather, it's not my fault, it's they, them, the car in front of me, the person walking there, my boss, my employee, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's them. That's when we're in the blame game, and that's the victim status, and that's when life happens to me. And spiritually, it's the least of the evolved stages, and it's one that we'll be in, in and out our whole life, but it's one that we really want to pay attention to because we don't want to get stuck into life happens to me, I'm a victim of it, and I'm just going to react. Okay? So that's the first level. And so the next level is life happens by me. And this is the stage where you could call it the doer stage, or maybe you could think of it as the builder stage. You discover that your thoughts, and you're convinced that your thoughts, your decisions, your choices, you make the world. You build it. You take responsibility for it, and it's on your back. You are grabbing the wheel. And there's a lot of growth in this stage. It's certainly a level of growth right outside of victim where everything's reacting. But you, in this space, you kind of have the saying, I've got to do it because nobody can do it. Only I can do it. I can try to get others to do it, but I need to do it. Everything's on my back, and I'm going to build and make my world. And I would say, living in Washington, I would say Washington is really, in many ways, a by me city. People wake up and they're going to take on the world, and they're going to shape the world, and they're responsible for the world, and they want credit for what they do. It's a little bit like, if you remember the Greek story of Sisyphus pushing a rock up a hill, it's a little bit like that. You never quite get through your to-do list or your projects. You're always in that state. That's the state of I'm busy, because I'm building the world. So of course I'm busy. So that's the second stage. That's life by me. Okay, now what's the next stage? The next stage is life happens through me. So at this level, you are the channel stage. Spirit comes through you, works directly through you. Unlike the victim, where you're reacting to the world, unlike the doer stage where you're making everything happen, at this stage where life happens through me, you are a spiritual vessel. And Swedenborg literally used that description of us, that we are vessels for life. And the shift to get to this stage where life happens through me is we have to be spiritually receptive. And it is really a stage of surrender. It's letting go, and it's saying, it'll work out. I will be present, and things will fall into place. So it really requires to release the grip on the steering wheel at this stage. And Swedenborg uses this language of influx, where this spirit and life and love is just flowing into your soul, and you can literally feel divine providence. Divine providence is that flow. And you can say, I am in the flow. I can feel it in real time. And you at the through me level, you become very humble, because you say in your sentences, but by the grace of God. I couldn't have done this. This happened with God's blessing. I couldn't have figured it out. I couldn't have pounded the world into the thing I wanted. And so it's a very beautiful stage where the peace of God is working directly through you, and life becomes much more effortless the more the divine providence is carrying into your life. The fourth stage, according to to Beckworth's model, is life happens as me. And in the language of Beckworth and the Agape Church, they would say it's you develop a non-dual connection with God, meaning you become one with God. This is where the Agape Church and Ernest Holmes would differ a little bit from Swedenborgian belief. We don't believe that you merge into God completely and that you become one with God. In fact, Swedenborg says that the more you develop spiritually, the more your uniqueness comes out and shines and blossoms. So the metaphor for this stage would be like a prism. And I really have never met anybody that I remember or know who is operating at this stage. I would assume possibly some saints operate at this level, but for the most part, people who are just completely, in a sense, in union with the divine completely, I think that's a very rare stage, but certainly one worth shooting for. So the question is, for each of us now, where are you living? Where are you spending most of your time? It's not necessarily a linear thing, like you go from to me, by me, to through me. It's not like you just, whoops. It's not that you're moving up. It's all linear. It's that sometimes you're going up and down. So on a daily basis, you might be like, I am feeling divine providence. God is through me. And then the next thing you're stuck in traffic and you're a victim of the traffic. And all of a sudden you're down to that level of everything is happening to me. So if you think about it, where do you spend most of your time? Are you more in the victim role, blaming? Are you more in the doer role, building? Or are you more in the channel role, where the divine is just working through you? The question then is, wherever level you're spending most of your time, what is the way we can move out of them? How do we break out of these different levels and move to a higher level? And so let's just review some possible ways to do that. To move out of the victim stage, where all of us spend time on a weekly basis, is self-awareness. And if you want to practice this week to help you with that, listen for every time that you blame or complain about something. Okay? So you're complaining about traffic, you're complaining about your coworker, you're complaining about the American politics, whatever you're complaining about. And one thing you can do is stop and say it out loud. Just say it out loud, whatever it is. And then say, all right, I'm committing to 100% responsibility for this. It's not happening to me. I'm not going to blame anyone. And just saying that can create a huge shift. But the first step really in that stage is just being aware. And the exercise is just saying it out loud. So what if you're stuck at that doer stage, that builder stage, where everything depends on you? This is the state of burnout and exhaustion that people feel. Now, to move out of this stage requires that we surrender to God. And that is very hard for those of us who have, like myself, really wrapped up in my ego. I'm going to build it. I'm going to do it. Surrender to God means giving up that. There's essentially an ego death. And you're trusting in God that God has a plan for your life if you're aligned to it, if you're really living and seeking to be in your purpose and you're being useful, that God will carry you into what you need. Amen. God has a plan, and you can trust the Lord to follow that call. It will work out. And that is a lot of trust. And it's very scary at times for all of us to really trust in God. I think of the disciple walking on the water and coming to Jesus and then look down at the water and boom. And we all do that. We sink. So when we reach that stage where God is really working through us, we will notice the humility. People will say, great job, or you're doing amazing, or how did you pull that off? And you will, at your soul level, say, but by the grace of God. I cannot take credit for it because I didn't do it. And you're not being falsely modest. You just know that you look at your life and say, these things came to happen and I couldn't have built it this way. So those are ways of moving in those three stages of developing the ability to become aware and just say, I'm complaining and say it. The ability to surrender and the ability to trust and grow to the next level. So I mentioned that we bop up and down between these, and one of the most common reasons that we do that, we drop back down, like we grow spiritually, and then we drop back down. The best metaphor that I've ever heard for that came in a book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, and I have preached about this before, some of you remember, but Hendricks describes us as having an internal thermostat, okay? So we have a thermostat and it's set at, 68, whatever it is. And we get really comfortable at that temperature. And then we kind of grow spiritually and we kind of develop and something really good happens. And we're really joyful. We're really excited. We're like, this is great. And what do we do next? We take that thermostat and we say, oh my gosh, I'm way up here. I've got to get back down to my comfort level. So when you find yourself saying things like, this is going so well, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, that's a thermostat setting. When you say, oh, this has been a great day, oh, what's going to happen next? And we will also self-sabotage. People who have been working through addiction, for example, will be so happy and they'll be, boom, start drinking or using drugs or something, whatever the addiction was, to get them back down to where they were. So that thermostat of comfort at earlier levels is something we need to break. And the book does a great job of talking how you make the big leap. The big leap is out of that setting, which could happen at any one of these levels. So here again, what are some tips that we can do? Again, just naming it. If you can become self-aware at these levels, you're aware of what you're doing, just being aware that, oh my gosh, I feel so good about things, and I'm saying something bad has to happen. That's not true. Nothing bad has to happen. Maybe I'm just upsetting myself to a higher level on the thermostat, and that's wonderful. Maybe I've grown to a new spiritual level. In each of these, when we move up, we become spiritually, we become better vessels for God working through us. And in today's gospel, we talked about you're the light of the world. And that's a huge responsibility that Jesus gives to each of us. You are the light of the world. The world is depending on you. We can't play small at that level of victim and blame everybody else for everything that's going on, or our greatness, which the world requires, cannot fully bloom, and we can't do good in the world. So it is very important to let our light shine, to move it from out of the bushel, the basket that covers it, move it out and let the light shine. This is our responsibility, and it's our key purpose on earth, is to move through these levels constantly. So the challenge is to be aware of it, but let go of blame, let go of control, and let go of the sense of separation that you have from God. And when you're making your shift, just ask yourself, what's emerging in me? What's holding me back? What do I have to let go? And just those questions can really lift you into the new level. I know our group always loves practices. I would say the one practice is the one I mentioned, and that is just be aware of the victimization language. Everybody's out to get me. It's not my fault. It's woe's me, always me. We all do it. Once you do it, just be aware of it and say it out loud, and it becomes kind of laughable. I read a poem this week, and I thought it related well to this message, and I would like to close out with that. It says, it's by David White, and it says, it's still possible to be kind to yourself, to drop constraints and fall often to your knees. It's not too late now to bow to what beckons. The world still swimming around you as you kneel transfigured by what sweeps in. It's still possible to leave every fearful former self in the wake of the newly heard words issuing from an astonished mouth. In this crazy world, it's crying out for leaders who are spiritually evolved. We need to be our best. Become that clearest vision of yourself. Let your light so shine that it can be a beacon to others. Amen. Okay, I see Eleanor's hand, and Ellie, you're first.
Hey Rich, thank you so much.
Hey.
As always, this was so interesting and helpful. I was just curious to hear in your experience what you think keeps people stuck. on a more like permanent level at either stage one or stage two for longer periods of time.
Yeah, well, I think the reason people get stuck at phase one is because to be responsible for your life and not have things to blame, it's intimidating. It's like, it's on me. So it is much easier to kind of describe the failures of life, that life is not working out the way I wanted it to, and have a reason to blame somebody else. It's not my fault. And then I don't think any of us want to, it's not about being fault, but the idea of being 100% responsible for your life is scary. So I think that's why people mainly get stuck at that level. The builder stage, I can, and I spent a lot of time at the builder stage, so I can talk more personally. At the builder stage or the doer stage, we have created things, and we've seen the success of our hard work, and we've been raised with the mentality that our hard work makes everything happen, and until it doesn't. And when I asked Jim, who had preached on this, where did he get stuck? He said at one point, as that builder-doer stage, he had essentially a burnout crisis, and he realized he couldn't. And so I think a lot of people have something of a breakdown often at that stage, because they've done, created, and still can't keep up. So I think those would be some of the, that might be some of the reasons people get stuck at those various stages. And I say stuck, we go up and down into them all the time. It's not like we're done with the first level. Eleanor, does that address your question?
Yeah, it does. I also just think it's so interesting. 'Cause it seems like there are these like apparent paradoxes that resolve by going up and down, right? So if at the first level it's like the idea that you have to take total responsibility for your life is terrifying, then at the second level you're doing that, but then it turns out you actually can't really do that. And what you really, and it's true, it is too terrifying to take full responsibility for yourself, but what you have to do is bring in something greater like than yourself to then take that responsibility. So it's just really cool to think of it all working together.
It really is wild, and it happens in different stages. And that's such a brilliant analysis that you just offered, because if you think about it, at stage one, the key word would be responsibility, because you're not responsible. It's not my fault. But if you get higher into the levels, it's surrender. And that's really hard after you've developed your ego around being a builder and being smart and successful and having a title and having done things and doing things. The idea of surrendering the ego and ego death, and letting go and trusting God. But you can't move from one without going through the other, it seems. But that's a really cool observation you made. And paradox are the most common form of spiritual teachings. They're usually paradoxes, and that's why Jesus teaches in paradoxes. Did anybody else have an answer for Ellie's question about the why people get stuck at those levels, or a thought of any reason why people get stuck? So I hope that covers it then. Really good question, and really amazing observation about the paradox of responsibility to surrender, and how challenging they are at each level. Anybody else with a question or a comment? I see Katie says, thank you for this was really helpful. I find myself in the doer phase most of the time. It's really challenging to give up control, especially when you deeply care about things. Outcomes. It reminds me of the song, Jesus Take the Wheel. Yes, that's what I should have played today, Jesus Take the Wheel. Yeah, it is because, right, aren't we, those of us who have gotten to that doer stage that you're describing, it's sort of what it is to be a responsible, good citizen. And we care about things, and if we let go and let God, God's not going to come through. That's fundamentally what we're, how do I know God's going to come through? That's a little scary. So I'd rather just do it myself. And everything's a mixture, right? We have to be active in the world. We can't just pray and say, God, do this, and not be active. It's all a mixture, but it's a very powerful shift. This week, when I meet with the spiritual entrepreneur group on Saturday, the training, one of the things that would make a spiritual entrepreneur different than a traditional entrepreneur is if you were coaching a traditional entrepreneur, you talk about networking and marketing, and you talk about all the ways you do that, right? That you go to events, shake hands with people, get your pitch down, that kind of thing. It's all you. One of the very practical things about evolving spiritually is that you may not have to market that way anymore. Because if you're in the flow, the people that you need to meet will come to you, and the customers that you need will come to you, and the connections you need will come to you. And you'll say, and this is really weird how this happened. Like it didn't follow necessarily a logical builder course. It's like, Katie wandered, came to a church to do a wedding maybe, or whatever, all the crazy stories of how we've all come together. They're all crazy stories, and we can't say we can take credit for exactly figuring that out. So really good point, Katie, that it is hard. And I definitely am often stuck at that builder, doer, and I'm always, that which drops me down into the blame. Oh, I'm so exhausted because I'm doing everything. So it kind of compounds on itself. Thank you for that, Katie. Anybody else with a question?
I have a comment.
Okay, let me give you the microphone. And Jimmy, while you're getting ready, I see Steve is online. Steve, do you want to go next? Steve?
Am I too late?
No, go ahead.
Uh, yeah, I guess my whole life seems like I vacillate between these two stages. As I've mentioned, I have the first two, that is, I have this bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
And thinking about what you just said, so in my current life, it isn't like it was when I was young. I had wild mood swings, and then I'd have periods where there were no mood swings at all. But now they're constant, up and down. If I'm happy one day, I know the next day I'm going to be a little bit depressed. And just the last 3 days have sort of illustrated everything you were talking about. On Friday, I was complaining about the traffic here in Hilo.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday, I sometimes lead the men's group here at the Lutheran Church.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had some success at it. I talked from a Swedenborgian point of view, I would say this is that I talked about faith being a more profound thing than mere belief, that it had to be mixed with love to be meaningful. And that actually made nobody pushed back on that, even though at the Lutherans, it's all faith, 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 faith. And they often confuse that faith with just belief. So I had success at that. So now I'm a doer, I'm happy. And then today, of course, that with these mood swings, now I'm a little bit down again. So do you think there's anything I can do about that? How to get maybe to stage 3?
I was wondering with bipolar, it's trickier because it's chemical in the brain, and it's hard not to. I would say it would probably be hard not to drop into, oh, this is happening to me, I'm a victim, I can't help it. But I'm wondering if you have found any techniques to, when you do, like you had a successful session at the church, is there anything that you have found that helps you hold on to it more? Is there like a...
I can't say that I have. Maybe I don't even try. I sort of reached the point where, okay, I feel good today. I know what's happening tomorrow, or sometimes it'll last an extra day, or the day after. That's pretty. And I know there are drugs for this kind of thing, but I'm hesitant to get involved in that. I know that a lot of people say that the creativity in the sort of upstage is good for you, helps you. And I don't know if that's exactly true, but it is. I mean, it does. It is there. I think of things that ordinarily wouldn't occur to me.
Yeah, the only thing I could think, and I don't have a clinical solution, but the only thing I could think in, when you have that moment where you say, I feel really good today, but I know I'm going to feel bad tomorrow, um, you could just check that and say, and but maybe I won't feel bad tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow won't feel bad. That would be the one thing I think you could possibly do, and I don't know if that would work with bipolar, but I think just being able to say, I know that for most of us, if just checking ourselves and saying, why am I saying the other shoe is going to drop? Why am I saying this is too good to be true? Like, why? Why am I turning that thermostat down? So I don't know if that would help in your particular situation, but I know that's been what's helpful for me is when I hear that voice say, well, it's going so well, it's going to be bad tomorrow, that I say, that's not true. I don't think that has to be true, and that's helped me. But I don't know if anybody else has any feedback for Steve, and then I can go to the next question, but I would prefer if it was any feedback for Steve. Jason?
Not sure I have a direct feedback or suggestion for Steve, but I wanted to offer one thing that I find helpful myself sometimes is having some sort of mantras, sayings kind of at the ready. It seems like maybe this is what you were suggesting, Rich. Some things at the ready when a certain thought comes into your head. And for me, one of those, and I don't know where this came from, I certainly didn't come up with it, is being able to say, if I'm worried about something in the future, saying, well, I'm going to trust my future self to be able to handle whatever that is. That's my thought.
Oh, that's a really good one. Um,
Okay, well, I'll do the best I can.
Mhm.
Sometimes I think that maybe it's not a bad thing that I'm dealing with it fine now. I don't get deeply depressed, and just the way it is, and maybe there's a good reason for it. But I'll try see what I can do about both of those suggestions, and we'll see what happens.
yeah, well,
Thanks to both of
yeah,
you.
that was a good suggestion, Jason. And uh, another exercise in along the lines that Jason was saying was when you're in that like, oh, this is going to be terrible in the future. You can just say to yourself, how am I right now? And just saying that, it's like, okay, I'm breathing, am I healthy? You know, because we can build very negative scenarios for the future, most of which don't happen, and they can create a lot of stress and they can lead to health issues. So I think, Jason, your idea of saying my future self will deal with that, and yeah, or just reminding ourselves that most of the things we think are going to happen don't. Katie, you wrote something in the chat. Let's see. Understand that thoughts are not things and you are never alone. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm next.
Oh, Jimmy's. I passed the microphone to Jimmy, and then maybe it was hard to hear me. And I forgot.
Oh,
That was Jimmy was next, and some people are saying it's hard to hear me.
okay. My thought was that we all go through all these different changes, but I think I'm going to go back to what Jason. I was about to say what Jason said, to have some kind of special thought in your head that keeps you from having the negative thoughts, something to reinforce your mind. And Jason kind of said his future self. I wasn't thinking future self. I was just thinking have some kind of thought in your mind that helps you keep going.
Do you have one?
Sometimes I say to myself, my mom wouldn't want me to think like this. That's my thought always when I have those kind of days. So that was just a
That's a
comment.
good one. I like that mantra. Yeah, sorry about that with the microphone. I hope that people heard me. I handed it to Jimmy. I forgot. He was next in line. Yeah, for me, sometimes it's just a spiritual phrase. Like I say, and I don't know why I have these, but I'll say, Lord, have mercy, or God be with me, or, it's just but I think having a mantra that's true to you. Jimmy shared one, Jason shared one. Something when you get to that moment, particularly when it says the other shoe's going to drop and things are going to get bad, it's trying to drop you down into a lower state. If you can find something that can just say it, because even saying something means you're aware that you're in that moment. Any final questions? Great questions.
Oh, Rich,
Yes,
I'm
Ross.
sorry, my camera is not behaving today. But the comment about one's mother reminds me that way back in 1970, I was living in Philadelphia, and I was really, really depressed. And I was looking down at the ground from several stories up and thinking about whether I should just jump. And what kept me alive was concern for my mother. You know, she had lost her husband 10 years earlier, and I'm an only child. And I just realized that that was what got me through that period, and that's why I'm still here.
Wow. Yeah. I would say Jimmy's saying amen to that. I don't know if you can hear him, but it's also the power of mothers in our lives that they can play.
Ooh, yes.
It's very, very powerful. And I'm glad you did have that thought, Ross, that you had that moment where you could reflect on the impact of what you were trying to do. So I think we all need to have something in our back pocket for those moments when we feel like we're dropping down and what can bring us back up. It can be relationships that we have that are important. It can be our future self will deal with it. It could be sometimes it's reflecting on other bad periods. And I got through this, I'll get through that. It's one reason why it's very hard we have to be really protective of adolescents, because they don't have that track record that it's going to work out a lot of times. So they really need someone to not necessarily just say, don't worry about it, but just to say, hey, I'm here with it. And that's what you're concerned about is a good thing to be concerned about, but there's no shame. I'm here with you. So thank you for sharing that story, Ross. It was very powerful. It really landed here in the chapel very powerfully with us. So thank you for that. And with that, I will now close out our Q&A time. But thank you so much for your questions and your comments on a very important topic.